You saw yesterday, we were talking about avatars. And if you are not an expert or if you don't want to be in front of the camera, you know how you can pretty much clone yourself or have a twin, do the heavy lifting for you. But it's all good to have these pretty things, or these pretty people, but then what happens after that? How do you actually make money? How can you monetize it? So that is what I'm going to talk about today. It's funny because this is the first time that I have been on stage by myself. Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm going to do my best. And people say all the time, I don't understand that. You're on a TV show. Like, you are on my TV every Saturday. Like, how are you nervous? And I'm like, it's just different because when you're just doing your thing, you're not paying attention to the cameras and I hardly watch my episodes. So it works. It's fine. But this is a totally different ball game. But for those of you who don't know, so I've been a ghostwriter for over 18 years, created products, curriculum strategist. I do it all. And a lot of my clients are high-level clients, which I can't really talk about because I'm under NDA. But I've been doing it for a really long time, and I like it that way. I like the fact that I don't have to necessarily talk about what I do because I loved always being behind the scenes. I liked making other people look great, all these Amazon bestsellers and all this, my name's not on anything, and I loved it. Until recently, I was like, oh my gosh, you need to get out there and you need to actually teach people what you know. So here I am. But thanks. So today I'm going to talk about how to build digital products that will actually stand out. As we talked about yesterday, it's very easy to just throw something up in AI, right? AI tools are like a dime a dozen now. Who knows? We can't even keep track anymore. And it's so easy to just go in there and just say, hey, create a product, that says, create a product for whatever it is. And boom, 30 seconds, there you go. But what is going to make the difference between you and the next person? There's going to be 10, 15, 20 others on the shelf that are going to look and feel the same way, the same AI-generated robotic content. So why would somebody go with yours? Why would somebody buy yours? So that's what I'm going to talk about. So yes, I was talking about the zombie house flipping. So I'm on this show, right? And it's funny because I'm used to, if I know what I'm supposed to say, I'll say it. All right. On this show, it's more docu style. So, we go in the house, we look at it, oohs, ahs. If you guys have ever watched the house flipping shows, it's the typical format. Every one of these shows, if you've noticed, they do have a format. They have certain story beats that you have to hit. All right. And sometimes it can get really redundant and really boring, but it is what it is. So, we go into these houses and we walk around, we say what we're supposed to say. And then, sometimes we joke around a little bit. Sometimes we may bicker back and forth, sometimes when the camera's cut, of course, cameras are always rolling, but when it cuts, that's when the real stuff comes out. And I'm like, well, Domar, how come you didn't do this? And I'm yelling at the contractor and we're doing all kinds of stuff, right? And it's funny because the cameras will zoom in. They'll zoom in on us because they feel like, oh, drama, right? Or, oh, we gotta capture this. And then our field producers will say, they'll cut that out. Just let's go back. Come on, guys. It's almost like herding cats. Come on, guys. Let's go back in format. They'll cut that out. So, don't say that. Come back and do this. And it was all just natural stuff. And it's funny because Brad, he spoke before me. It always has to get to his level. Now, he's no longer, the exec producer of our show currently, but before when he was, it was interesting because the very things that we thought would be cut out, those are the things that at the Brad level, he'd be like, okay, I want that. And I'd see that on the episodes because that's what the audience resonated with. They resonated with the real. They resonated with the authentic. And so, when it came to these episodes, it was just so funny. Now that he's not there anymore, I'm like, oh. But it's interesting because it happens all throughout life. So not just on TV, but it happens in, any product that you're trying to, create, any kind of brand that you're trying to build in any level of marketing. It's all about how can you stand out And how can you be a cut above the rest? Why would I want to listen, like, know, and trust you over your competitor? So, like I was saying before, with AI right now, it's kind of twofold. AI can be your advantage and your disadvantage at the same time. I think I heard Francis talking about this yesterday, where it's great because it cuts down your learning curve. It cuts down so much time that you spend on so many things, and you can just spit out anything in a matter of minutes. However, it's also a disadvantage because guess what? Everybody else has the same thing. So, how are you going to be different? So, what I want to talk about is basically how you can differentiate yourself. What is your signature story? Like, what are you going to share with the world? Okay. And a lot of people, they think that, creating product is the hard part. I've heard this so many times. I've had this book and I've been wanting to create it, or, I've been wanting to put this thing out for a year. How many of you have like wanted to put out products or wanted to put out a book, an ebook, whatever it is, for how long, and you just still haven't done it? It's still just sitting there. Oh, I haven't finished my book yet. Oh, I haven't finished my book yet. That is the easy part. You know, the hard part is trying to figure out what is that end result that you're actually going to hit, because people buy outcomes. They care about what is in it for them. They buy belief. They want to know, like, and trust you, and they want to know that they can believe you. So, just like yesterday, well, I thought, what was it again we were on? I think it was designer, that I was kind of, let's just hurry up and just do a quick little, 30-second ebook. And it literally popped out something in 2 minutes. It was amazing, right? But if I were to put that out in its current form, what would anybody buy it? You probably would get a couple sales because, it was decent content. I skimmed over it real quick for a few seconds. It was decent. But would it really, make that impact that you're going for? Why? No, it's not going to, because it doesn't have your personal story. They don't know who you are, what you do. They don't have any kind of connection with you, the person behind the scenes. So that's why it's so important that you take that generic content that you create and you have to really make it yours. So a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll skip over the most powerful idea that they may have, thinking that it's too basic. All right. You have those people that are very, I'm an expert, I'm a real estate investor. Yeah. That's what I do. Or I'm an agent, or I'm a, direct response copywriter, whatever it is. But then you have those others that they really do not feel that they have anything to offer this world. Okay. Or they may be in a transition where it's like they were doing something for so long, they were in a certain space, and then all of a sudden they're out of it and they're left stuck. And they're like, I don't feel like I have anything left to offer the world. But you don't realize that very thing, the smallest little thing that you may think is just dumb, stupid, nobody find value in, that's the very thing that would add value to somebody else's life. The problem is that because you have been in it, sometimes it's hard to see the picture when you're, in the frame. So it's like you're too close to your own brilliance to even recognize that it's brilliance. Okay? Think about this. If you have, I use this example all the time. You can even be a dog trainer. I had a call with the Boss Babes community, if you're familiar with Boss Babes. And it was funny because we were talking about this a little bit, your hidden mess, and, how it can be your message. And some people thought, I don't know if I'm really an expert. And I gave the example of being a dog trainer. You may think, oh my gosh, all I do, I just love my pups. I'm that's all I do. I just stay at home, love my pups. I'm pretty good at training dogs. Guess what? That's not too basic. Because think about it. Someone out there may be super desperate because their puppy won't stop chewing on the couch, and they've got to figure out how to fix that, right? Maybe you were training your dog and maybe you only take 3 tries versus 6 that's normal, right? That's a product. That's a service. That's something. That's a level of value that somebody else would appreciate and that they would pay for. So it's just about going in the back of your mind and really figuring out, what is it that I am an expert in, And how can I bring that to the surface? Nothing's ever too basic. Here's the key shift I want you to understand. You don't need to be the expert. When people think about expert, right, you're like, oh, I'm not an expert. An expert, you don't have to be like the best expert in the entire universe, right? Like the top real estate investor in, my whole state. That does not matter. All you need to do, you just need to be 3-4 steps ahead of the person that you're trying to help. That's it. Because you're an expert to them. You know something and you can offer something that the other person doesn't know. So that is your true expertise. And then you learn alongside that. Just know that if you've solved a problem that somebody else is struggling with, I think I said this on one of the calls as well. Like if you've got a group chat and you've got people that they come up with something and you're like, oh, you're the first one to jump in and give your advice, not just because you like to hear yourself talk, but you give true, really, really good advice. They know that you are the go-to person for that. Guess what? That's your thing. So people that I don't know what my thing is, you may not even realize it. Think about it. Are you the one in the group chat that always has to come forth with, relationship advice because Sandy over here said whatever it was, and you already know this is exactly what you need to do? You don't even realize that is your expertise, and you can monetize that. Okay? Now, I guess the big question is, how can you uncover this? Because it's easy to just say it. But there's a few questions that I like to kind of ask when we talk about figuring out what your hidden gold may be. And you don't necessarily have to write everything down. I'm going to have like a worksheet and I'll put it in the event app that you guys can have this afternoon. I just didn't get a chance. I didn't get to it yet. It's too busy in the bathroom, but but I'll make sure that you can get it and download it. And I need you to go through it and actually take action because I think that it'll uncover a lot for you. So the first question is, what frustrates you most about your industry or how things are done? All right. What drives you crazy enough that you could not do something about it? Right? Like, what do you wish existed, but you haven't seen it exist? You could be like a bookkeeper who, I don't know, maybe you just you developed a simple spreadsheet for managing finances or clients or whatever. And this accounting software, something that accounting software doesn't have, right? Like that simple spreadsheet system, that is a system, that is a product. You could be in HR. Maybe you're tired of, hiring practices and you're tired of, I don't know, certain job descriptions, and you've got this cool way to come up with it. Like any niche that you're in, you can provide value outside of what you're already doing. So if you're working like a W-2 job, if you're working a 9-to-5, you may think, okay, I want to do something on the side. If you have expertise, if you are like the top head honcho, guess what? You can take all that knowledge that you've accumulated and you can make a side hustle out of it easily. And then guess what? Once you start making all that income, you can leave your W-2 job if that's what you want to do. So the second question is, what have you figured out that most people are still struggling with? This answer is going to be your framework. It's going to be your process. Okay? This is going to be your secret sauce. So like I said to you before, when someone comes to you with a problem, what do you do differently? Right? Like I said about the dog trainer, maybe you're able to fix that separation anxiety in, I don't know, a couple of weeks versus a couple months. And it's like, wow, guess what? That's a product. Okay. Maybe you're a real estate agent and, how many real estate agents in here actually? Any agents? Okay. Now, before AI, how easy was it to pass the exam on your first try? It wasn't, not a lot. Not a lot of people will pass on their first try, especially if they don't study like they should, right? But let's say you have. Let's say you are an expert, you know that thing back in front, and you can if you were to have that test today, even after all this time, you being an agent, you would pass it. Guess what? That's a product because do you know how many other aspiring agents would love to purchase a product that says, hey, I am going to show you how you can pass your exam on the first try versus 3. You see what I'm saying? Little things like that you wouldn't think of. That is a product. The third question If someone came to you stuck on this problem, what would you tell them to do first? Okay, that first step, that is your offer. All right. Maybe you'd say, stop trying to do it all, and just hire this core role first, or, delete 80% of your content and focus on only these three. Whatever it is, that first step, that's your transformation. And that's your transformation process. That's what they're buying when you offer that clarity and you offer that momentum, like it'll just build, and that belief will build at that point. Now, a lot of people, they like when they create products, they like to start from the top down. I want to create a course. People come to me, clients all the time, I want to create a course. Well, why? Because I just know I got to create a course. Well, what is it about? It's about, how to, I'm going to go back to real estate again, how to wholesale in real estate. And I say that because yesterday we were talking about my 39 real estate wholesaling courses. So I want to wholesale. Okay, well, you want to create a course. What is the why? It doesn't, and they don't know. It's just like, I just want to create it. I always like to reverse engineer. Okay. So a lot of people start, like I said, with the format. I like to start with the end. So reverse engineering, I like to start at the transformation or start at the result. Okay, so it's like, what result are you selling? What is the transformation promise? What is the goal? What's the end goal that you want your clients, your audience to know, to learn, to be able to get? Okay, you start with the end in mind. What is your promise? All right, and it's not going to be just something like, oh, a social media course. No, that's not what you are selling. That's not the transformation promise. The transformation promise is, guess what? After this course, you will finally know exactly what to post, when to post it. You'll get this and blah, 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 whatever it is. What's that end result, that end promise? That is where you start. You start there, okay? And then you work your way down. Then you work your way to the pathway. Now, the pathway is your methodology. So what's the 3 to 5 steps that they'll take to accomplish whatever goal? Okay. And that's something that because that's your expertise. You can use AI to help you a little bit, but that's really, you only feed, AI is only as good as what you feed it. And if you want it to truly be yours, it's up to you to come up with, okay, if you're a dog trainer, how do you do that? How do you actually make this happen in a couple weeks versus a couple months? Jot that down. What are those steps? That's your pathway. And then once you do that, you figure out what format you want. Now, when we talk about the format, there's many different formats, like ebooks, courses, ebooks, mini courses, there's workshops. You can do a full book. Now, I'm not talking about the whole funnel in terms of, having like a front end lead magnet, and then, you have a tripwire, and then you got this stuff, and then it goes up. I'm not going there yet. I think that this is a very good beginner stage just to get something out there. If you don't have anything out there. Okay. And I think, in my opinion, an ebook or guide is always going to be the easiest, just to kind of get your feet wet a little bit. Okay. And it's the fastest. And when I say an ebook or guide, I'm not talking about 20 page. I'm not talking about, people have these like 100, 200 page like guides. Like, no. What's the one thing? Simple and specific. Simple and specific. It beats big and overwhelming any day. Okay, so a small 20-pager would make so much more of an impact if it's done right than a 100-page guide that nobody's going to go through, because the majority of people do not look past the table of contents. It's so funny. When I create books and they're on Amazon, usually you have I don't know if you guys have ever seen where you open the front cover and then you've got the dedication page or whatever it is and table of contents. And then there's always like a page that kind of has a little call to action. Hey, download this or go here or whatever it is. There's a reason. You know why it's right there in the front? Because nobody goes past the table of contents. They're trying to get you before you even, because a lot of people, they don't read the books or they'll kind of skim it. So that CTA is always in the front. to capture those emails and capture that attention. I say all that to say a 20 to 30 page, guide that's softly guiding, it's giving great value, but it's guiding them to the end result. That will be big and powerful, overwhelming any day. Okay, so real quick, remember what Brad said? I think we talked a little bit, and I think he talked about being the one and only. Let me tell you something. It's so funny because that connects directly with what I'm going to talk about, because once you've extracted all of this expertise using those questions, which is pretty simple, then the next step is to infuse that story with you, who you are, and put your voice into it. That way you can be the only. Now, that's what's going to make your product different than the rest. And it's going to make you get past that generic AI stuff that's out there. All right. So let me show you what that looks like. Let me me go back. Did I go back? Yes, I did. This is my first time using a clicker, y'all. Okay, so, all right, let me go through a quick example so you can just kind of see how this process works in action. Now, the first example is, let's say there was I would do this in ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it is that we would use on here. Honestly, the tool doesn't matter. And I would use it here, but I know the internet's been wonky, so I'm like, let me just pull this up. I did it in advance and then put it on slides, so at least you have it. But that does lead me to say that the tool, people asked me even yesterday about tools, certain tools. The tool does not matter at the end of the day, because as you can see in this AI revolution, the tools are changing daily and sometimes hourly. You're going to have the next best thing that's just coming. And it's like when you talk about doing something in one thing, here comes the next thing coming right up. So that's why if you have a framework, you can take that and use any tool. But as of now, my favorite, tried and true, ChatGPT and Claude. It's very simple. Very simple. That's just my favorite right now. Of course, I've tested a bunch of different ones. I mean, I like Designer for doing certain ebooks, but for the most part, if you're just starting out and you really want to kind of get your feet wet and get to know what your signature framework is, what your signature story is, and how that can be implemented throughout whatever product that you create, something as simple as ChatGPT and Claude's fine. Let's go over an example. So let's say I'm an investor and I want to help first-time landlords avoid the legal mistakes that I have made, right? So the frustration, there's three things: frustration, methodology, and first step. Remember, we talked about this. The frustration is most landlords don't protect themselves legally. That's why I was so frustrated, and I feel like I have to, help other people. All right, what's the methodology? The methodology is that I use a checklist system for agreements and for screening. That's what I do to prevent this frustration, right? And then what's the first step? Get the lease signed right before handing over the keys. Okay? Now, I fed that into AI. Okay, and this is what I would use in ChatGPT. So this is a prompt. I'm gonna give you this, like I said, in the event app. You'll have like a worksheet with all of this. So I don't need to necessarily go through the whole thing, but basically, you're not just asking ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to just write a guide. All right, you're teaching it what you know. You're giving it your frustration, your methodology, your process, your first step, all of that stuff, whatever your angle is, because that level of specificity, I can't even say that. Thank you, is what makes the AI really produce the results that you're going for, and it creates something unique and something valuable. All right, so I always say the quality of your prompt and the quality of your input is going to determine the quality of your output. All right, so specificity is everything. All right, so once I put that in, this is what it gave me. It gave me a pretty good outline. Guess what? This outline is not AI generated. It is, but it's based on your methodology. Okay, it pulled out the key sections based on what you gave it. All right, it structured it logically, taking someone from confused to confident. All right, but like I said, it's not generic. It's based on your specific answers. That's the power of this. Once you have your outline, then you want to steer it. Now, this is important. And this actually, I wish AI was around a lot sooner, because I've been doing this for 18 plus 19, I don't even know how many years at this point, and everything's by hand. Everything is just using my brain, which is good. But the point is you can actually steer ChatGPT, Claude, whatever AI tool that you use, right, to be more specific. So you can make section 3 more specific and include what to look for in tenant background checks and red flags that landlords miss, right? Or, so you can steer it if you already know what you looking at the outline, you're like, it's missing some stuff. You steer it in the direction that you want it to go. Or guess what? If you don't know, you're like, I don't know. And guess what? You just need to tell AI to pull the gold out of your brain. That's been my job for how many years, right? Where I pull the gold out of people's brain to create something of value to the world. AI can do that. All you got to do is ask it. So you just say, ask me 5 questions about tenant screening that would make section 3 more detailed and valuable. Or you can say, is there anything that I'm missing? If there's anything that would make it super valuable, it can add on. Ask me those questions so that I can give you those answers. And then I want you to create the stuff based on the answers that I gave you based on the questions that you asked me. You see what I'm saying? So it can be very powerful. You just have to know how to use it. And like I said, it doesn't matter the tool. Does not matter the tool. AI is going to start interviewing you. That is key. That is like gold right there, for sure. Now, the difference. Look at the difference in content, right? We've got generic AI content. Screen your tenants carefully. Okay? Expertise infused. Look at that. Here's the screening, right? You have use a lease agreement. I mean, it's just so much more detailed. Okay? And that's what it would give you. So you truly can say, okay, this is my work. This is my content. This is my book. Yes, AI was the vehicle and it helped me, but it's ultimately mine. Okay? My favorite part. Okay. So this kind of goes in line with what Brad was saying. Okay. It's those real moments that connect. So once you've got your content, it's great. It's wonderful. It can make that transformation to somebody in somebody's life. How do you truly make it yours? So, the real moments are what connect. I have a client. I can't necessarily, I'm going to call her Emma. It's not her name. I'm under NDA, so but she came to me and she had this course, right? She built this course on reinventing your career after, I think it was like major life transitions or something like that. She was, I think in her 40s or something like that. But it was interesting because she asked me to take a look at it. She said, Keisha, it's not selling. I don't know what's going on. And I'm looking at this course and the content was good. I looked at it like, because I'm honest with my clients. I'm like, you don't need me. Like it's great. There's nothing wrong with it. It was solid, actionable, tactical, clear, step by step, right? But only after a couple months, I think she made, a couple sales. And I know that it's all about the marketing, right? It was marketed well in terms of the marketing strategies that she used. So I'm like, you know what? Let me take a look at all your stuff. Let me see your emails. Let me see your, the course. Let me just see everything. And like I said, it was good, but it was missing the one thing, which was the connection. That was the issue. Her story was missing. And when I asked why she created this course, that's when she opened up and she started bawling. And I was like, I was not expecting this. Because I was like, well, why did you even create this? Oh, but Keisha, and she starts crying and I'm like, oh my gosh. And she says, I just went through this horrendous divorce, brutal divorce. And I'm a single mom with my daughter. And, we're just trying to make it. She says, I have to make this work. I have no choice. What do you mean? Well, she went through the divorce and my husband was a sole breadwinner. And I have nothing. My savings account, I hardly have anything left. I have to make this work. And it's just me and my daughter, and my husband isn't doing anything. And he won in the divorce, whatever it was. Bottom line is, it's all he kept saying to her, and all she kept replaying in her brain was her husband saying to her, I made all the money. You're never going to be anything without me, right? You're never going to survive. What are you going to do? You're going to go work at Waffle House or whatever it was. It wasn't Waffle House, maybe McDonald's. I don't remember what she told me, but I was like, right? But she's crying, and I felt awful. But at the same time, I'm looking at her and I'm like, I didn't know any of this. I said, where is this story? You know, you're teaching people how they can start and reinvent themselves, but I don't see you doing that. I don't see you sharing that. How do people know that they can even know, like, and trust you, and you're telling them to do this, but you're not sharing your story? They don't understand it. You know, they want to know that they can start over, but they also want to know that they see that you've done it as well. So it was interesting because she said, oh, I didn't know. Well, I just didn't want to, you know, that's just too much. It's too personal. You know, I don't want to, you know, I don't know if it's too, you know, whatever it was that she said. I said, listen, you don't have to give people your trauma. So when I say that you need to be open about who you are and your story, it's not that you're going to trash your ex. And this is what I told her, you're not going to trash your ex. You're not going to go out there and, you know, start, you know, giving people all of this trauma, but you're only going to give what serves. Because guess what? There may be 5, 10, 15 other people in your exact shoes, and they need to hear what you have to say. They need to hear how you are rising from the ashes and how you're able to reinvent yourself and the steps that you took to do it. Now, you've already included the steps because the content was good, but there's no context, there's no story. So we went ahead, we took the front-end marketing, some of the emails, I think we added like an introduction, and we weaved in our story through the course. But on the front end, people need to know who you are. Once we did that, she made 6 figures in 6 months from the exact same course with the same content, explaining the same steps, same step by step. It just had the story, who she was and why, her purpose, why it was important to her. And do you know the interesting part is that through all that, she developed a new avenue of revenue because she called me and says, you know what, I just wanted to thank you because not only, you know, this course is a success. Okay, great. But not only that, I've had so many women contact me and told me, oh my gosh, you see me. Do you offer consulting? Do you offer consulting? Do you offer something? Because, oh my God. And so she has a whole nother revenue stream for her and for her daughter, something that she would never even guess in a million years that was available to her. Okay? That's the power of the story. That's the power of the story. Now, let's go over real quick. I only have 6, 7 minutes. Never done this before, so going over. All right. So there's 5 questions. There's 5 questions that you need to use to infuse your voice, okay, into your content, whatever content it is. I don't care what it is, all right? And first is, what is your unique frustration or your perspective, all right? This is going to be your angle. So this is what makes you different. AI can give you generic information all day long, but it's not going to give your specific lens to the problem, all right? And then number 2 is, what's a real story from your life that proves that this works? All right, people don't buy information. They buy proof. They buy results. They buy belief that this worked for someone like them. So your story is that proof. Number 3, what do you wish that someone had told you? Told your younger self, right? If you would have known this way back in the day, then things would be different. What is that thing? Answer that. Number 4, what's the weird or unconventional way that you do this? Whatever it is that you do, right? What's that unique thing that you do? You train dogs, you're able to get it done in 3 weeks versus 3 months. What's that different? You know, what's that differentiating factor? What's that weird thing that you do? Number 5, what part of your mess informs how you teach this? Like I said with my client, Emma. What was her mess that informs how she's able to teach this? She didn't go out and trash her ex. She didn't go out and talk about all the stuff that he said to her, even though she probably could have and should have, but that's personal, right? But like, what's that balance? What's that fine line between personal, what's in the bedroom stays in the bedroom, right? And like what will actually serve a purpose and touch somebody's life and touch their heart. There's a difference there. I'll also give you those questions as well I forgot to actually add that. I have a whole framework for figuring out what is your hidden mess that can be your message and what is the balance between the two. Like, how much is too much? Okay. I'm about finished. So what I want you to do is tonight in your hotel room, I know you don't have the questions or the framework yet, but you will in the next hour. Don't hold me in an hour. 2 hours, okay? 2 hours, okay? I'll put it in the event app under my session. And I want you to download that, all right? Download the worksheet. Make sure that you do the 3 extraction questions. It's very important. Your frustration, your methodology, the first step. All right. You just got to get that raw material out. Okay. And then open up whatever app you want to, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, whatever tool you want. And you're going to use that to pull out the gold that you have in your brain. Even if you are an expert, let's say you are a real estate investor and you're already well known. Guess what? You may not be using your story and you may not be using your expertise the way you should. You could probably amplify that a little bit more. So it doesn't matter whether you don't think you're an expert or whether you are one. You can still amplify that. Okay. And then once you do all of that and you figure out what gold can I pull out, and then you say, okay, what's the story, right? And I also have an exercise in there for, posting on social media as well, like your story, and then just see the results, look at the results and see how it can be so transformative for you and for your life. And I think that's all I got.
That's a wrap for this episode of the AI for Business podcast. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit subscribe and pass it along to a friend or colleague. We appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you in the next one.